Yo, what's up, y'all? What's up? It's Rom Wills back at you with yet another video. Social versus sexual discussions about relationships. Yeah. I wanted to get into that some more. I was I had listened to like a few videos. I always listen to Cousin T talk because he's closest to what I've experienced in real life. If y'all want to hear about some of the stuff I don't talk about, listen to Cousin T talk. Listen to C Boogie. He had a very good video talking about sex, and he was discussing some underworld stuff. I was like, yeah. And of course, Alan Roger Curry. Alan Roger Curry just straight up with it. I like listening to them. And one thing I noticed about that crew, though, and I got to throw myself in here, get a lot of hate. Get a lot of hate and everything. But a lot of that's coming from people who discuss more the social side of relationships. Understand something. This is something I've talked about consistently. I've talked about this for years. In fact, my mentor, Master Yao and Yamache Morris, he had discussed this in his phenomenal book, legendary book, Amamara, The Natural Blueprint for Relationships. And a statement he made in there always struck with me. He said, many men can confuse the natural behavior, the proper behavior for a man socially with the proper behavior of a man sexually. And that's just bigger than just men, just period, just society, just society at large. People will talk about the social aspects of sexuality or relationships, rather than even sexual, the social aspects of relationships. All right. And in fact, some of this, what I'm about to say, some of it I said for my a preview for my Rom TV channel, because I'm gonna do a study guide on I'm gonna do a sexual chemistry study guide. That's my book, Sexual Chemistry, and this is some of the stuff I've mentioned. But like a lot of guys socially, they'll say, well, men need to protect and provide and do all this stuff, make money, have resources. And they'll say the women need to submit because of that and do this and that, and they should be in submission and do all that. And all that's well and good for the social side of relationships. Or some people complain about women making their own money or anything and how that affects relationships. But that's the social side. Like what you do outside the bedroom, that's the social side. That's legitimate in a way. Yeah, that's very legitimate. But when you're talking about sex, that's a totally different thing. Because this is some I personally experienced this. And a lot of men who've had sex with multiple women, or men who've been in that sexual underworld, know this as well. You can get a woman who shows one picture socially and it's totally different behind closed doors. I remember one of my early experiences with this woman. She got a PhD now, running some shit. But when I was dealing with her, she was totally submissive in the bedroom, sexually, incredibly submissive, super submissive, in fact. And you still got that. And there's several instances of that. And that's something that people got to remember. It's a totally different behavior. So, if we just stick to who women choose, and yeah, they might say what they like socially, but then they move by the man they dealing with sexually. In fact, there's a lot of talk about women finding a good man and, finding that right man. If they would just focus on the social aspect, 90% of women will have a man. Even with that money thing, sometimes they try to come up and say that money thing and all of that. They got to have money, or they don't have this, they don't have that. And in a way it's true, in a way it's not. It's a way of perception. One thing that men have to understand, when women speak publicly, they don't necessarily outright lie, but they don't get a whole truth. Because like when they say they need a man to be educated, have money, resources, that's directed to the men who turn them on sexually. The men who can turn them out, got them screaming, got them hollering and everything. All that's what they want to have, because usually what the case is, the man they dealing with sexually, even if he has money, he don't need it for them, so he don't spend it on them. Even if he could be a millionaire, and he ain't gonna spend it on them, because they only dealing with him sexually. Because one of the biggest issues out here is that often people are compatible with someone sexually, but not socially. And that's shit. That's part of the reason the sexual underworld exists. Because you have a woman, she'll deal with a guy socially, even marry that guy socially. And, she'll have obligatory sex with him, transactional sex, or, obligation sex with him, even pity sex with him. But when she going to get turned up, she cheating. Now, I know some people, whenever I say stuff, they say, oh, Rob crazy, all that stuff. Well, just do a Google search on infidelity. Shoot, go to the adultery Reddit that exists. You read it for yourself. You don't have to read it, believe me. Shoot. And, like I said, I actually talk to people out here. Now, I ain't going to call any names. I don't feel like getting texted by some people who might see this video. But you got women out here married to men making 6 figures and more who regularly cheat. Regularly cheat. Some are even cut-coded and stuff. And you got a lot, you got so many sexless marriages, and they got that. If women really just wanted that money thing, they could find that. But see, they want the sexual thing. And even when I talk about select and non-select now, I've said publicly several times, 2 types of select men. One is the Mr. Goodbar types. Those are guys just raw sex appeal, right? But then also talked about the mass men. Those are guys who got to have a little bit of money and status and all that shit. But here's the thing. Sometimes people hear that and think, well, okay, if I got money and status, I get it. No. That's just part of it. The mass men still have to be physically attractive. In fact, they need to be actually more physically attractive than the good boys. That's how deep it is. They still have to have some type of... They got to have... Whereas Mr. Goodbar might... Let's put it like this. If you use a scale from 1 to 100 as far as where somebody is at. Mr. Goodbar is at 100. He's on a scale between, I'd say between 75 and 100 on that sex appeal level. The masked man is on a scale between like 50 and 75. He still got a level. Like a woman could look at him and say, boom. For the guys who can't get that concept of how, it's just like if you look at a woman and she might not have like those sexy clothes on or that sexy attitude, but she still got a fat ass. You still be like, oh yeah, I can tap that. Women are like that too. Because despite, let me go off on a tangent real quick, because there's always a constant question of whether women are as visual as men. Yeah, they are. There's actually been some studies that discovered this. They've actually done some studies. They say, hey, these women are on the same thing. So a woman might get with a guy now. He might not have a certain attitude that like turns on or aura, but she'll still be like, well, yeah, he muscular, he generically handsome. They'll still fuck him. That's what a masked man gotta have. And it's still a sex thing. Like the whole select non-select thing is sexual. But then a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people think, well, if if I have this, I'm a good man, I'm doing all this. No, it come down to if you turn on. Like, I've heard this for years. I've heard guys say, well, I do this and that. Okay, so how does that get her wet? It's not the activities that get her wet. A woman got to look at you and want you inside of her. She got to look at you. She got to hear your voice. She got to smell you. That's an organic thing. And women are actually cold-blooded with that shit. Now, they'll deal with a guy who don't have those to satisfy social things because of peer pressure and friends, or just wanting to have somebody. But like I said, go check out the infidelity forums and anything talking about adultery. Look up sexless marriages. It's happening big time. But bringing it back around to what the subject of this podcast was, or video, is a lot of times you have You got groups of people who represent the sexual side and want to talk about it more. Because trust me, that's what I do on my other stuff. I'm getting into sex more. On my more private sites, like on Patreon, that's my highest level right there. I'm talking about sexual dynamics on there on Patreon. Y'all want it at a basic thing where I'm gonna talk about it all the time. That's Patreon, you know. And you know, I get into even deeper on my Raw site, where we about to get into Tantra. We about to have a Tantra webinar with Master Yao. And you know, it's just a lot of times you got two people, they talking about two different things. It's two different languages. And the reality is you got to say, okay, if you're going to say this, you know, if you want to talk about this, okay, you could, you know, it's good for that other stuff if you're talking about getting yourself together. But if you're talking about sex, it needs to be sex. Shit, even some people talking about dating and stuff, they don't really talk about the sex part. And that sex part, like I said, that's a visual thing. That's why I'm a strong emphasizer of the body game. You know, that's why I'm a strong emphasizer of it, because women be making that decision on that body. She want to see that body inside of her, under her, behind her, laying side by side, upside down. Oh man, doing that one I told y'all about. You know, you get in that you have her on the floor, right? You have her wrap her legs and arms around you, then you pick up and put yourself in a push-up position and still go. Yeah. Oh man, I think that's how I got my second son. Anyway, right? Yeah, but that's the thing, and that's why when I hear people, like, you know what? Sometimes I know I get some people, they don't like what I'm saying, or they want to question it. Well, here's my thing, and I'm gonna put this challenge out there. If you gotta talk trash about anything I'm saying, focus on the sex star. Tell me where I'm wrong about sex. Tell me where I'm wrong about sex. Because people talk all this social shit, but I'm like, you know, you get the social thing, you know, so you can live well and everything. You know, let's talk about that sexual thing. People talk about, you know, they focus on, you know, women getting with Pookie and Ray Ray, Thugs, Chad, Tyrone, whoever. It's a sex thing. It's really that fucking simple. It might not be a social thing, you know. So anyway, right? That's all I got for today. You know, and that's one thing too. I'm gonna start gradually, just going harder on the sexual side. If y'all want to hear like social and everything, well, you know, I got a business channel for that. Y'all go there. All right. And that's just for business. Cause the social side, man, we be talking that shit to death, man. I mean, damn, yeah, motherfucker, you supposed to have some money and resources so you can feed yourself. You know, and that's good. You know, you're a good gentleman to a woman do all that shit, but a lot of times that woman looking at you, she all right. She know you'll take out the trash. She know you'll keep the bills paid, all that shit. But shit, she want to know, hey. She want to know if you can make that G-spot explode. Shit. She want to know if you can find that G-spot. You know? It's actually easy, but, you know, y'all got to go on my Patreon or on my private site to find out. It's easy as shit to find a G-spot. In fact, if you know what you're doing, it'll come find you. So anyway, right? Yeah. You want to get at me or you got some criticism, tell me about the sex stuff. Don't leave the social shit out of it, man, because we got to be real with it. Oh damn, I knew her driving by. I ain't seen her in a while. Anyway, that's it for now, y'all. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and many blessings.